one of the very first things that I like to cover as I begin teaching students how to shade with pencil is how not to do it. And I feel like that's important because there are so many different ways that people either teach themselves how to shade or have seen it done, and a lot of those ways you give up control of what the pencil is doing for you, or the graphite. And I've got a way of shading that I don't know how common it is. I haven't seen it very much. I really like it, and this is what it looks like. The goal here is to create a band, okay? Just a stripe of gray going from as dark as the pencil goes to the white of the paper, so where you can't see where it ends. It just blends right into the white of the paper. And you want there to be a fairly even width, okay? And you want to go for about 4.5 inches. That's important to me as a teacher because I want my student to go from as dark as they can with their 2B and not drag out the transition. That makes it easier. We want there to be an intentional transition as quickly as possible. Helps them grow a little bit. So the very first thing that happens, so here's our first non-example. Non-example number one. In our first attempt, and sometimes second or third attempt as well, we start with our band, and we get the pencil built up. We get it as dark as we need to, and then we start thinking to ourselves, hey, I need to bring this out here. And what happens is we all contract this horrible disease called tornadoitis. And that's what happens right there. Sure, we went from dark to light, but we get these lovely tapering effect. You know, it turns into a little sideways tornado. It's terrible. We don't want that. We want to stay out here. So you think, okay, I've got this figured out. I can do this width thing, no problem. So we start again. You start up, you build it up so it's as dark as the pencil will allow you to go. And then you're really just thinking about the width. And what happened? Right there, we got too light too fast. This can be revisited. You can put another layer of graphite on here. You can make it a little smoother, but right here for this particular example, going too dark, or not too dark, but to go too light too fast, that's the problem. Number 3. This one has everything to do with your posture, believe it or not. This one, when we put our hand on the page to draw or shade or whenever, a lot of times when we're holding a pencil, our hands can get kind of clammy and sticky and sweaty or oily or whatever, and you'll start to shade. Okay, you're trying to get this little band going, and because of your posture, you're using your hand here to hold your body up. Okay, there's a lot of pressure going on right under here, and we need to be able to move freely, but if we're not and we get going so far, then we need to reposition our hand, and you'll get kind of, as you're working lighter, when you need to reposition your hand, you get these darker bands as you progress across the paper. If you find any particular point At any particular point in our band, what's desired is anything, in this case, from the left of this point should be darker than this point, and everything that is to the right should be lighter. There should never be anything like that. All right, number 4. Now, this one I throw a big fit in class. Excuse me. And this one, I always get just a little bit of an argument, but it's like, hey, I've had a previous teacher that has said this is okay. Let me reiterate. Once you learn the rules, then you can break them, but it is very few and far between where this particular rule is effectively broken. So I adamantly do not allow my students to do this. Some other teachers out there, they may have a differing opinion. This is just me. But I have students like, hey, you are making this way too difficult. I may save you lots of time. Here we go. We're going to build this up. Build this up nice and dark. And then put the pencil down. You take your greasy, grubby finger, and you're like, oh yeah, that is some good shading right there. Well, here's the thing. With smudging, you're taking the oils from your finger, which there's quite a lot, especially if you've been shading or working and your hands are kind of sweaty. It's kind of gross. And you're essentially taking the oils plus the graphite and then grinding them into the paper. It's kind of like a tattoo to your paper. This does not clean up very well at all. If you need to erase with any given eraser, whether it's on the end of a pencil or a kneaded eraser or anything, it just won't clean up nice. Let me explain further. You take that oil and you take the graphite, and this is what you get. This is linseed oil, and this is black oil paint. This is essentially the same thing. Maybe not quite as workable, as oil paint is, but this stuff is not what a good drawing is made of. So, smudging, not good. And if you're working on detail, I don't care how small your hands are, your finger is just not able to get into little teeny tiny areas. And you're thinking, wait a minute, what about a little blending stump? Like this one. Now this one's not super clean, but a lot of folks use these, absolutely. You will still get a different texture than if you use a sharp pencil. In my previous video, talked all about why sharp pencils are important. It's getting into the texture of the paper. These have their place, don't get me wrong. But if we want to be in complete control with our drawing, and we want our drawing to look more like a drawing and not like a charcoal drawing, these can sometimes get in our way. Like I said before, let's learn the rules, the proper techniques before you break them. You'll always turn out better. I've had students come back to me from college, art school, and they thank me. And they say, thank you for teaching me how to use a pencil correctly so that I am in complete control of what's going on in my sketchbook and in my final projects. It's just that important. I've had students that have received scholarships because they know how to do this, and they know how to do it better than the next kid. And I've had students that have been accused by my professors as having their project done by me. I'm not saying that I'm the best, but their work looks so much more polished than their colleagues, and it just looks better. Okay, the next one, number 5. This one, if you've noticed, I've been working with kind of an oval, very, very skinny oval, and I'm gonna kind of show you here. I've been working just like that. You can see a very skinny oval, and that allows for overlap from one pencil mark to the next. If you don't leave that overlap and you just go straight up and down, what you get are a whole bunch of white lines, little slivers. These add texture, sure, but that's not what we're trying for right now. We're looking for a controlled gradation from dark to light, and that's it. We're not trying to manipulate it right now. If that's our criteria, then we're going to have to come back and fill these in. And that's a lot of work that we don't want to do at this point. Okay? So these white lines, we don't want verticals. And the last one here is just going entirely too fast, where you build this up and then Peter Rabbit syndrome is what we call it here. And this works great for pen and ink because we're letting the white show through, and that helps us get lighter and darker. But this is just a lack of patience. We want to make sure that this is not happening. We're being patient with what we're doing, and we're laying it down nice and slow. Now, I'm right-handed. All these things, if you're left-handed, just flip it over, okay? Where you're working from here and pulling it this way.